When they get that deep dive, they start to see the value that they have built, and they start to see the potential that lives there, and the red flags that make it hard to manage, hard to grow. Slice a million into 5 pieces. You'd think maybe 200,000 should sell in each year, and they've been doing this survey since 2008. So the same million people, yeah, I'm going to sell within 5 years. And yet the number of businesses that have sold don't change. The growth isn't enough. So the value drivers are crucial. So it's a step in the right direction, but it's not the full step. The full step would be, and what does it need to become so that it fits into an ideal buyer's?
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dream Catchers podcast. I am your host, Jerome, and we've hopped over the line. We're going international, y'all. We're going to the west coast of Canada. I've got Lorraine McGregor in with me today, and you're in for a treat because this lady knows how to help get your business sellable. She doesn't want to help you get an exit plan. She wants you to build a sellable business. And even if you don't sell it, it's a good thing. Lorraine, how are you?
I'm well, Jerome. Thank you for having me on your show. What a privilege.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I am grateful that you decided to take time out of your schedule to invest in me and the listeners today. Lorraine, you've been doing this a while. I know you might not want to date yourself, but there's a badge of honor that comes with being in business for a while. So we're going to see how you play this one. How long have you been helping people make their businesses sellable?
Well, I've been doing that since about 2008, and I've been a consultant to help businesses grow since 1990.
Ooh.
Long time. Long
I
time.
mean, it's a little bit of time. Okay, so you've
Yeah,
been through a few cycles, I would say.
I have. Yes. I've seen a lot, worked with more than 300 companies in multiple industries across Canada, the US, the Caribbean, and the UK.
So not only is she doing this practice international, not only is she 3 decades plus in it, she says it so humbly. All right. So now I'm gonna make you brag a little bit. So when people work with you, what type of results do they typically experience?
Oh, that's a hard question. You'd have to ask them. I think they come to terms with um, what they've built, and they understand how it can be used to their benefit and how it can run away from them and make life difficult. So a business is uh, an entity unto itself. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and so does a business owner. But those two life cycle paths often diverge, and they're not the same. So what an owner experiences is understanding their business from the financial, operation, marketing, demand side, in terms of, is it returning value for customers? Is it returning value for employees? And is it returning value for the owner or owners or partners? And when they get that deep dive, they start to see the value that they have built, and they start to see the potential that lives there, and the red flags that make it hard to manage, hard to grow, and hard for people to work in that environment. And it's very easy to take that kind of thing personally and feel defensive, but the way that we explain the information, they can see it dispassionately from that independent third-party status and go, oh, okay, now I understand why some people quit, why I'm not being able to pay bonuses, why I don't always get to pay a dividend, why it costs so much to grow and costs so much, and why my credit line's growing. So I guess we demystify by deconstructing what works, what doesn't, and why. And that enlightenment brings a sense of peace, brings more certainty and gets them reconnected to their motivation and aspiration, why they started the business and where they want to take it next.
Wow. So when you said those things and you got to demystify, I was thinking clarity. So
Clarity. Yeah.
the folks experienced clarity from working with you, and you went down a bunch of different, I don't know if we call them verticals or chasms. Sometimes we call them rabbit holes, but
Mhm.
like we go down these places and we find the thing that they've been trying to figure it out, or they've been
Yeah.
trying to figure out but couldn't without having somebody kind of reading the label on the jar is the way I describe it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Business is so complex, and most owners are quite emotionally attached to it, and you're, standing in it in day to day. So it's hard to get the perspective to see it in a different light. Since I've worked with so many different businesses, I just understand the structure that works and the structure that makes it difficult. And so we're quite attuned to being able to spot those red flags, as we call it, that drain profitability and make it a stressful environment for the culture, and like herding cats for the leadership.
Okay, you said we like 4 times now. Who's we?
So my business partner, Rob McGregor, is also my husband. We've been working together since 2000. And he is our leadership expert. He is a business coach. He's a conflict specialist. He helps people have the kind of deep conversation that unblocks conflict, gets people moving again, makes them want to work together, get buy-in, and it helps leaders understand how to mentor and delegate and trust their next in line to become managers and leaders unto themselves. And of course, that's what makes the business easier to run. And then also how to have the kind of tough conversations, like how to hold someone accountable, how to fire them in a way that doesn't turn into a lawsuit, those kinds of things.
Well, those things are pretty tough. I
They
don't know
they
that many
are.
people that like those things.
Yeah.
All right, so riddle me this. There's a lot of businesses, well, there's a lot of businesses that say they want to be sold every year, but there aren't that many that actually sell. Am I right about that?
You are right about that. It's strange, since I started doing this specifically, helping businesses become saleable in 2008, I've been tracking the number of businesses that sell each year using the S&P, Dun& Bradstreet, the Small Business Administration surveys, the Exit Planning Institute surveys business owners each year, and they ask, when are you planning to exit your business? Just the framing of that question raises the hackles on the back of my neck, because people don't like that word exit, but that is the term. It's a bit existential, it's like the end of, you're telling me that's the end of me and my identity. But so the numbers, so the average number of businesses that sell each year are about between 16,000 and 18,000 in the US. And the number of people that say they're going to exit their business in the next 5 years is more than 1 million. So even if you slice 1 million into 5 pieces, you'd think maybe 200,000 should sell in each year. And they've been doing this survey since 2008. So the same 1 million people, oh, yeah, I'm going to sell within 5 years. And yet the number of businesses that have sold don't change. And this in a backdrop where every year there's more and more cash buyers looking for acquisition. So massive demand should meet the huge supply, and there should be a lovely, relationship blossoming out of that, but that's not the case.
So if I get an exit plan, then everything's going to work out all right. Okay.
Well, if there's only 1.2% of businesses that actually sell, and there's a lot more that try to sell, We know this from talking to M&A advisors. That the business that's planned for an exit is not necessarily the business that buyers are looking to acquire. Those are two different ideas. So from an M&A perspective, you have to remember that an ideal buyer that is looking for a growth solution. They want to grow to the next level. They're going to use an acquisition to get them there faster than it would take it for their own team to make whatever it is that the business offers. And it's got to fit in either as, a separate company or as part of the company that's buying. And if it doesn't have a nice fit, if it doesn't exist nicely with its other components, that deal's not going to get done. And the difficult thing is that the M&A investment bankers, the advisors, the business brokers know who's buying and know what they're looking for. So you won't even get representation as a seller unless the advisor can check off a whole list of things because they know exactly what the buyers are looking for. So you might have created an exit plan. You might have created a succession plan, but you haven't done the work to make it attractive to a buyer. And so, time comes, maybe, it's for whatever reason you're ready to sell, you won't find an M&A advisor that will take you on. Or they'll take you through a process, put you on retainer for a few months, and it still won't sell. And it's not that your business isn't successful. It isn't that it's all an attractive business or it's not good enough. It is that you haven't done the work to make it a saleable enterprise, attractive to another company or a private equity group that needs it to solve their growth problem.
You said so much. I don't even know where to go.
Sorry, Jerome.
No, don't be sorry. It's just your experience is exuding. It's coming out all over the place because here's the thing. I think people are getting sold a bill of goods by being told, "Hey, get your exit plan." And then everything else is going to work out, but you're saying implementation is necessary. You have to implement the exit plan, assuming that the exit plans align with making you sellable, which I don't think those, as you said, they're two separate ideas.
Well, there's steps in the process. Doing an exit plan is a good idea. And I know that there's a lot of interest in validation and adding value drivers. Value drivers is the nomenclature used to say, here, sprinkle these things into your business so that it's growing, which is important. You want your business to be growing because no buyer wants to acquire something that's flatlined, but the growth isn't enough. So the value drivers are crucial. So it's a step in the right direction, but it's not the full step. The full step would be, and what does it need to become so that it fits into an ideal buyer's growth requirements? And you might sit here and go, well, I'm not ready to sell for another 5 years, so why would I look at that now? Well, the strategic direction the company takes has, you can't flip the switch and become what the ideal buyer wants in a year. You have to adjust everything strategically. So your offering, your markets, your team is exactly what they're looking for. And so that takes 2 or 3 years to build that and see the results on your income statement. I think the crucial thing is that seems mystical almost is, well, how do I know who's going to buy my business in 3 years? So I'm not saying specifically, oh, it's company X. They're going to be the ones. I'm not, pulling a crystal ball out of the thin air here. I'm thinking strategically, we worked with a coastal engineering firm and they figured, oh, another coastal engineering firm will buy us. But in the market that they work in, they are horizontally built to service the needs of that marketplace. And in North America, coastal engineers are vertically integrated. They only do coastal engineering. And so there isn't an ideal buyer in that whole world, even though they do coastal engineering. And in another situation, different group of engineers, once they got very narrow and did specific things in the oil and gas industry, now a big company, big engineering firm that wants somebody that can do small projects in oil and gas. Oh, that's perfect. And I knew that lots of companies were working or looking for that opportunity. And so we're narrowing down strategically who might be the best buyer and what problem they need solving. And that has to be the problem that many companies are trying to solve, not just, the needle in the haystack. So it's a strategic planning, market research puzzle that we solve for our clients.
So it's almost like you're looking for a client for them, right? Like you're creating an avatar and then positioning them so that the avatar has to have them. They're the most desirable option in the marketplace.
In a way, yes. It's the same as, the marketing problem that you have if you're promoting a service or a product. You have to solve a problem for the buyer before they're willing to commit funds and be loyal to your company. It has to be delivered in a way that makes sense to them. And so that same thinking needs to apply to an ideal buyer. And I guess the crucial part here is that you have to frame the opportunity for the ideal buyer. They're already looking. I mean, the ones that are going to be making acquisitions already have a team of people that, have a list of all the potential companies out there, and they're always got their ear to the ground, talking to people, talking to advisors, watching the market, going to the trade shows, and seeing which companies on their list are doing what. And they're keeping track. So they're the ones that call out of the blue because they've been watching from the sidelines. Private equity, same thing. They have different criteria than strategic buyers. Strategics are other companies, but private equity looks for a level of growth that's really hard to get in many industries. So, they tend to stick to the industries that can grow 30% year over year, have lots of free cash flow, have a management team. They look for the owner to stick around. There's lots of criteria that make them, sometimes a good partner to buy, sometimes not. So as strategics are looking for more activity in a certain market, more specific expertise, another vertical that they're not into yet, a component that will complete their platform of things that can go do something well. And, some of the best ways to generate that ideal buyer to look at strategic partnerships, especially if you make a widget that fits into other widgets. A component, your system, your product should be part of a system, not just a standalone element.
So it's part to whole. I mean, it's what we're
Mhm.
really looking for. And I guess
Yeah.
this is going to be a strategic buyer. You've been through
Strategic buyers
cycles.
make 85% of all acquisitions. Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt you. Just that's why I kind of focus on those types of buyers.
So you've been through cycles, right? You
Mhm.
said 2008.
Mhm.
Everything worked in 2008. 2009, 10, and 11, things were a little bit different. Pandemic, something else that I think was shocking for a lot of people was just what happened in the business environment there. As you've kind of rode these waves, the highs, the lows, I think you've probably noticed some patterns that lead to a business always being desirable. Is there anything that kind of sticks out when you think about that?
Well, different things drove those cycles. Availability of capital dried up in 2008. So if you were a business that needed capital to survive and you weren't recession proof, you didn't have, something else to offer in a downward cycle, your growth dropped off. Everybody's growth dropped off. And so, that's a very stressful time, and figuring out how to keep your business growing or just going without, imploding through that time has made many owners more resilient, but also a bit gun shy for the next economic downturn. I think that during COVID and the change in the US tax law, suddenly there was a mad dash to want to sell businesses. And that was 2022 was the highest number of M&A deals in the US ever, 18,000. Normally yours 15, 16,000. So anybody that wanted to get out tried to get out. Some people bought businesses. That was unique. Having another entrepreneur find the funding to buy a business, that happened a lot more in 2022. Certainly didn't happen back in 2008. So every cycle brings with it its own issues and its own lessons learned, Yeah.
Lessons learned. But you can apply those lessons in other situations, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, the full definition of being an entrepreneur is being resilient to whatever situation shows up. Oh, taxes are going up. Okay, what do I want to do in this situation? I want to go, mitigate my tax. And what can I do to that? We'll have to get some experts on board to figure out how to do that. And I need to do it without ruining my business. It's not just the tax accountant you need to talk to. You need to think about it strategically, because how you position your business may make it hard to sell later. I've come across many, where they're trying to sell holding companies, and now we've got capital gains, tax problems, got family structures, all of the complexities. And buyers, can go, oh, I can buy this company that doesn't have all these difficulties, or this one with this complicated ownership structure and tax structure, and this one's easier. I think I'll go there. So what you put in place today doesn't necessarily suit being able to sell it later. And so you have to remain intentional at all times about the return on investment you really want.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
ROI. So wait, all the stuff that they were doing before was at least in concept to improve profitability. All the stuff we were talking about was to improve profitability, right?
Well, maybe. But if you don't know what drives profitability, and we're talking at the gross profit level, so the cost of making your service or offering, and the net profit level, which is after you pay all your expenses and salaries. So what drives profitability for you is going to be compared to what drives profitability for companies in the same industry. So understanding your comparables and how you rate within your industry is kind of crucial. That's difficult information to get, something I have access to, but not everybody does. And then, we're less than the benchmark. Well, again, the ideal buyer also has access to all those comparables. They're going to go find one that's above the benchmark.
Wait, how'd you get access to the secret database?
I know where to look. Yeah, the information is available. You get it from public company stuff, PitchBook, Crunchbase, business statistics. And what I do is I search a lot of different sources and then harmonize based on the size of my client, the complexity of their industry. It's a lot that goes into understanding what drives value and not just the valuation.
Wait, so you don't just get on the internet and Google multiplier for this industry and then apply it against whatever their top line revenue is, or SD or EBITDA?
No, I don't. I don't do that way. And when I work with a client, I make sure that they understand how valuation is done from multiple perspectives and why a buyer is going to set the value that's important to them. And really, you have to understand a buyer is like anybody. You want to go buy a house, you found your dream house, but it's in a neighborhood you never want to live in. So it doesn't matter how much money, how beautiful that house is, you're not going to pay $1 for it. And that owner might have spent 2 million on that house, but they're not going to get that 2 million because it's not from that particular buyer, because it's not worth it to the buyer to be in that environment. And so it's so essential to become detached from the valuation you think your business, or the price you think your business is worth. Otherwise, you just got lost. And when we're feeling lost, or we're feeling gypped, or we're feeling like we're not, well, all we've done hasn't been valued because we're valuing the past and the buyer's valuing the future, it's very hard to say, sure, you can buy my business and sign on the dotted line. So the multiple, it's the multiple of earnings. That's one way to value a business. And understanding the intangibles that drive the multiple component of the equation and the tangible information that drives the earnings part of the equation helps our clients understand how to play the game a whole lot better. And then they know the range that they need to get into, and not an absolute number they're attached to.
So let's talk about the detachment, because there's the detachment from the actual sales price, which leads us to the detachment of the business. You said people don't like the word exit, right? But at the end of the day, you can exit to something, or you can exit from something, or you can just go into oblivion. But what do people experience that they don't expect to experience on the other side of selling their company?
Oh, whole closet full of things that haven't been attended to. So, top of the list is, who am I without my identity as president of a company?
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes come. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcatcher. Your dreams should be real.
Who am I without my business family, my business community, my supply chain buddies, the people I golf with? Who am I without the monthly paycheck and I get one big pile of cash? And then I got to make that last, and I'm not used to managing my money that way. Who am I at the beginning of my day when I'm not expected anywhere? And people aren't waiting for my decisions. And what value do I have now? What's my purpose? So you talked about exiting to something. I think framing that way is essential. Like, what am I moving towards rather than what am I leaving behind? And your orientation to your pathway makes or breaks your ability to make this transition. And all of that comes rushing to the surface when you have a letter of intent sitting in front of you and a buyer with a pile of cash saying, okay, we're going to make this happen. And you suddenly can't sign. And we're working with a client right now that's in that very position. Has his father's company, he owns it. And then his father's still alive, and he's got 3 offers on the table, and he can't sign because he's not sure if his father will approve of him signing. And what will happen with family relationships, and what will his, family, people who rely on the business for their livelihood, do without their paychecks? And will they still have jobs, and what will happen? And all of a sudden the weight of those decisions has frozen his hand in midair and he can't sign.
Ouch.
Yeah. So Rob is working with him to help him find some pathway forward that where he feels comfortable and he doesn't feel guilty and he doesn't feel afraid and he doesn't feel at odds with his family or, or the brunt of, the caustic comments that might come at the dinner table because he did something maybe that his dad wouldn't have liked.
So how do you get your clients prepared for the things that you mentioned? Not having a place to show up to every day, having a lump sum of money instead of a monthly paycheck, and so on.
Well, if it's late in the process, Rob helps them work with the undercurrent that's going on for them to help them understand their emotions. Emotions are only information, fear is only information. So he helps them come to terms with that and weigh the pros and cons of moving any particular direction. If we meet the owner earlier in the process and we've helped them decide that turning their fabulous, successful business into a saleable asset is what they want to do, they will have worked on what they want next in their journey as part of the process so that they have a sense of purpose and value moving forward. And this business isn't the sole defining feature of who they are.
I love that you use the word next. That's our process for helping people move from exiting from to exiting to. And I think it's a phenomenal way to get people away from fearing retirement or thinking exit's a 4-letter word. I guess it's a 4-letter word, but it's not a curse word. Um, so you kind of I don't want to say you hand it off, but Rob focuses on those types of issues along with the other uh, messy, sticky, touchy, uncomfortable conversations. And so let's kind of go back and dig into you learning how to help businesses grow. And so when we say grow, sometimes people think headcount, other people think revenue, some people think profit. When you say grow, what are you really focused on helping them grow?
Well, that you're right. This is a complicated topic and it's not just financial. A business exists and excels when the offering, whether it's service or product or mix of that, solves a problem for a particular target market. And the target market likes it enough that they tell two friends. And in the telling of two friends, more people get excited about it and they step forward and want to keep buying. And when you think of that equation, meeting the needs of a particular target market that keeps returning for more, plus brings more people with them, that is the kind of growth that we talk about. Growth has to be strategic before you see it financially. Growth has to solve the problem for the target market where they exist today, not where you hope they'll show up from. And it's not living in a field of dreams. You build it and they will come. That the world doesn't work like that anymore. Unless you've got billions in your stash to keep throwing money at the marketplace. But I think what you're really aiming for is where should I focus when I look for growth? Well, if you have something that solves the right problem and you have the right partners that need that solution, then I think you have a growth runway. Well, the next place to look for growth is at the gross margin level, not at the revenue level. Because you can have a wonderful offering, but if it's bringing you less than 35% after you've sold it, that's a difficult business to run. And so you can grow a lot of revenue and just not have a lot of left over to pay for all your fixed expenses, your management, your advertising, your cars, your phones, in order to get the profit that you want. Because remember that the entrepreneur is rewarded by, you get a salary for the functional job you do, and then you're paid dividends for taking the risk as an entrepreneur. And so if you can't pay yourself dividends, it's because you've got a gross margin problem. You might have a fixed cost problem as well, But that's gross margin is where we start. So growth there can make the biggest impact on the business. And we actually have 8 strategies that can help drive better returns in the income statement. But that's only if you've got the first strategic component right offering for the right target market that wants more of the way you
Ooh.
deliver it.
So product market fit is something that somebody needs to come to you with, and then
Mhm.
you help them optimize running your playbook. You basically have 8 strategies that you can use to help them make more profit, right?
Make more profit, make more gross margin, and get more friends to come keep buying. Yeah. One of the most the going back to who's the ideal buyer, they look at the quality of revenue as one of their checklist items. And the quality of revenue has to do with how frequently it walks in the door and how much it costs you to get that revenue in the door. So at the lowest quality revenue is where you have to bid for projects amongst, like in construction or government contracts where you spend a lot of hours and manpower proposing something and you put a bid in and then you cross your fingers, and you might have had to put a bid in at a really low gross margin level to win the work. And then you still have to pay for all your fixed costs. So there's uncertainty about whether you're going to win that bid, and then uncertainty about whether you're going to make a profit on that bid, all the way to the highest source of quality revenue, which is recurring revenue. Like if you're a landlord and you get rent payments, or you have software as a service and you get subscription revenue. But all of them have their own burdens to carry. When you're running a business, it's great to have software as a service, but how much churn do you have? What's it cost you to keep those customers? And find the next one. How much you have to spend to get another one.
Yeah,
So all of those
cost to
cost of
acquire a customer is the
acquisition.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So you dropped in 35% as
Mm-hmm.
kind of a hurdle. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
more about that. That's a big number for a lot of folks. Construction's never going to get there.
Some construction companies do, and we show them how. Yeah. Oh, yes. Super important. Well, it's niche specialization gets you to 35%. So again, it's a strategic problem. If you're the only contractor that can solve a problem a certain way, and you've got a great reputation and people that are attracted to working for your business because how you organize project management, it's systemized and people are trained and people treat each other well, then you're going to win the work because you got the most organized job site and you know how to bring in your projects at the profit that you estimated or better because you've done quality engineering, value engineering. You found a way to make it work. And your specialty is building envelope or building with unique steel and tilt up really fast. It's something unique. You're not a general for everything. You're a specific general for these kinds of situations and where you don't have competition. So it's the old blue ocean versus red ocean strategy game that gets you to 35%.
So we figured out that if you got a niche, you can make a highly profitable business. We figured out that product market fit is essential for optimization, and people who are trying to optimize before that are probably pre-optimizing, and doing that will probably kill the business because you don't ever get to the place because you don't have the room for experimentation. For a person who is ready, I don't want to say they're ready to sell their business, but they're tired of the business. And usually when people are tired of business, it's not going so well.
Yeah.
Is there a way for your business to be sellable if you're not growing? I know you said people don't typically want flatline, but if it's not growing, is there a way to sell it, or should they actually batten down the hatches and go for another 2 years and get it growing and let it show up? on the P&L?
Well, I'd love to be able to say if it's flatline, sure, you can still try and sell it, but the operative word is try. I think you really have to anticipate that you might run out of steam. You might get to a point where life throws you that curveball, disease, death, divorce, where you're forced to take that into consideration. And growth is a two-edged sword. I get it. You've been running a nice business, it's flatline, but it makes you enough for a living. Another entrepreneur might want to buy that because they can see that growth is still possible. So you have to be able to think through the strategic equation again, where growth might come from. You can't sit on the sidelines and go, well, you figure it out, because you've just sliced away a good chunk of the multiple that you might be able to win if you've worked through that problem and you've got some plan in place and somebody implementing it for you. Because remember, when you sell a business and you're in a functional role, your role has to be replaced. So if you're the person with all the smarts about how you're going to get the growth and you leave, the value just walked out the door. So that's an impossible situation not many buyers want to step into. But there are a lot of entrepreneurs that have their own source of funds, a couple million here, that they want to buy businesses. So that is a growing market, but not growing to meet that many businesses. It's like that's about 5% of the market. So yes, you have to knuckle down and put some kind of plan in place and make sure that the people that are staying with the business are responsible for the thinking that goes into that plan and the implementation. And at least if you got it a little way up, you got it started and there is some evidence that it's getting traction, that helps.
And what if they say, Lorraine, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do it again.
Yeah. I think coming to terms with your lack of motivation, the lack of energy you have for taking on any more, you have to just start a plan to close down. Because what's the alternative? You're going to wait for what, though? There's no magic person that's going to come along and rescue you out of your business. And so before you start seeing profits decline because revenue is declining and watching your money evaporate, it's better to say, yeah, it was a wonderful ride and I'm going to transition my business so that I can close and find other ways to get my people a job, get my supply chain patched up with other vendors. That's what a lot of people do, they take great pride and responsibility for their business community. We know several HVAC dealers, a software company, they knew they were going to close and they worked really hard to make sure their people found solutions for their next step in their career, solve the problems for the people that have relied on them.
To me, that just sounds like one of the greatest tragedies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You spend all the time, the decades for a lot of people to get to the place where you're at the end, and then you don't get the liquidity of it.
It is happening every day in every town across North America, that businesses are closing because there's just no options left. And I wish I could scream from the rafters. You have to set your intention now for whether you need a liquidity event, whether you need that financial certainty that there'll be more than just your salary that you put aside and saved. Whether you put aside and reinvested that salary and maybe some dividends into other assets. So if you think that that you've been counting on your business for your retirement wealth, but you haven't done anything other than hope or even hired an exit planner to get on the path of selling one day, then, you know, we can't help you. Yeah, it's the sad thing. This is not like real estate. There isn't a buyer for every home. There isn't a buyer for every business. There isn't. There's a buyer for those businesses that have been made saleable, and saleable is not the same as having an exit plan.
I think that truth is sobering for a lot of folks. I think you said 1% of businesses sell. Is that right?
Well, if you think about a million, yeah, it's 1.3, 1.4.
So less than 2%, right? If we're generous.
Less than 2%. Yeah. Yeah. And that, remember the survey, 70%, that's about a million, just under a million businesses. And 16,000 sell in a year, so less than 2%. Yeah. And that number is pretty steady. It doesn't spike, even though there's more exit planners trained, even though there's more awareness today, because in the tech sector, everybody's talking about exit as soon as you start up your business. But in traditional business world, that idea of an exit is being raised in a different context. There are a lot of M&A advisory firms that cold call businesses and talk about having a buyer in the background. And all they need to do is come out to an information session, get in a meeting, and hey, we'll package your business up, we'll put it on the market. And what they're really doing is training their MBA interns on how to make cold calls and looking for their next retainer client. And they will give you evaluation. They'll put your business up on a website, but they're not actively going to find a buyer for you. The website's going to do that job. And you will continue to pay that retainer until you decide to take your listing down. And so if you get a lot of those calls, you think, there's a buyer whenever I want, because they said they had offers all the time. But that doesn't mean they know anything about your business. That doesn't mean they have a buyer standing there looking at your business, seeing in magically somehow to your financials and knowing, that they want to acquire it. So there's this false sense of security amongst owners today that because they get these calls all the time, every year, every month, calls and letters, and not just one or two, many. They think they can sell when they want for what they want. So that I will exit when I damn well please. Thank you very much. Don't call me anymore, but then call me when I want it.
So they can be dismissive in a space where they're overly confident because,
Yes.
And they don't even really understand what's happening because they haven't explored it. So
That's
they're
right.
misled. And that is tragic. I mean, but anyway, I don't want to end there. Let's go here because we've been a lot of places. What's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this episode? I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay. I love it that you've done a succession plan. I love it that you've worked with an exit planner. And now take the next step. Take the time to understand how to find your ideal and identify your ideal buyer and shift your company strategically to become that much narrower niche that ideal buyer is looking for. Because remember, a buyer will pay a premium, meaning a higher multiple of your earnings, to acquire exactly what they need to solve their growth problem. And so when you work with someone like our firm, which focuses on how to become what your ideal buyer is looking for, your exit plan can be activated. You can calculate the value of your business into your net worth statement. You have financial certainty that you will likely have wealth accumulation, that you can hopefully work with a good financial strategist to preserve. So the liquidity event, if that is vital to you, if you want that return on investment, you can't just think exit. You got to think, what's my ideal buyer looking for? So take that extra step.
Ooh, wee. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you it was going to be a good one. You should have known if we're going international for guests that the guest is going to bring a perspective that we couldn't get from just going around the corner. Lorraine, this was a phenomenal episode. You're helping other people catch their dreams, and you're a dream catcher yourself. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Jerome, what a generous gift to say how you said thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fun and enlightening, and you are a wonderful host.
Thank you. How can the listeners find out more about you and what you do?
Well, you can go to spiritwest.com, where we have all kinds of resources that explain what I've just described. You can come to our webinars, which are on my LinkedIn page. Happy to connect. Tell me that you listen to Jerome's podcast and connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right, so we're going to link you up in the show notes, your LinkedIn, and then they'll also get the website so they can sign up for those webinars. What can they expect if they come to one of the webinars?
Well, we run a series for all kinds of things: troubleshooting strategic partnerships, how to make your business saleable, our decision roadmap to evaluate if you should make your decision saleable. We're doing one on tax changes. We're doing one on cross-border acquisitions and mergers. I have a list of 10 other things we're going to be doing this year. So we're deep dive, eight ways you can improve predictable profits and make sure you can pay yourself dividends. There's another one. And I'll do one per webinar.
Whoa, 8 ways you can create predictive revenue or predictable profit.
Profits, yeah.
That for me, I mean, how do you not sign up for that? Y'all hop over to the website, get signed up. I think I'm gonna get signed up now just so I can know more about predictable profits. Again, Lorraine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerome. Love talking to you.
To the
Take care.
listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.